Marcus Webb had brought his daughter, Chloe, to Sandpiper Beach every summer since she was born. It was their tradition, 2 weeks in a rented cottage, building sandcastles, collecting shells, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. At 43, Marcus cherished these quiet moments with his 10-year-old daughter more than anything else in his life. He'd been a single father for 8 years now, ever since his wife Emily had died in a car accident when Chloe was just 2. The years had taught Marcus resilience, patience, and how to braid hair, though he still wasn't very good at that last one. But most importantly, they'd taught him that life was precious and fleeting, and the moments that mattered most were the simple ones. This particular afternoon, Marcus sat on the beach reading while Chloe played at the water's edge, her light blue t-shirt and shorts already damp from waiting. He kept one eye on his book and one on his daughter, a skill he'd perfected over the years. The beach was moderately crowded with vacationers enjoying the warm July day. Marcus noticed a woman swimming alone quite far from shore, farther than most people ventured. She had dark hair and wore a white shirt over what he assumed was a swimsuit, though that seemed like an odd choice for swimming. He thought it, but didn't dwell on it. People made their own choices. Then Chloe shouted, "Dad! Dad, that lady!" Marcus looked up sharply. The woman who'd been swimming was no longer visible. Then he saw her, just her arm, waving frantically before disappearing beneath the surface. Marcus was on his feet and running before conscious thought kicked in. 20 years ago, he'd been a lifeguard during college summers. The training was old, but it was still there, embedded in muscle memory. "Chloe, stay on the beach," he called back, already hitting the water at a run. He swam hard and fast, his heart pounding. By the time he reached her, the woman had gone under twice more. She was panicking, thrashing, gulping water. Marcus came up behind her. Never approach a drowning person head-on. His training whispered, and wrapped his arm across her chest, pulling her into a rescue carry. "I've got you," he said firmly. "Stop fighting. I've got you." She went limp, whether from exhaustion or trust he couldn't tell. Marcus swam them both back toward shore. Fighting the undertow, he could now feel pulling at his legs. It wasn't strong, but it was enough to tire an inexperienced swimmer. To pull them just far enough out that panic set in. By the time his feet touched bottom, lifeguards and other beachgoers were running toward them. Marcus carried the woman the last few yards through the shallow water, her weight nothing compared to the adrenaline pumping through his system. He laid her gently on the sand, and she immediately rolled onto her side, coughing up seawater. She was alive, breathing safe. Chloe ran up, her face streaked with tears. "You scared me!" she cried, throwing her arms around Marcus's soaking wet form. "You just ran into the water and I thought something bad would happen to you too." Marcus held his daughter tight, suddenly aware that he'd terrified her with his rescue attempt. Of course she'd been scared. She'd already lost one parent. The idea of losing another must have been overwhelming. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," he said, stroking her wet hair. She must have waded in after him before thinking better of it.
This one.
"I'm okay. We're all okay." The woman Marcus had rescued was sitting up now, still coughing but breathing steadily. She was younger than he'd thought from a distance, maybe late 30s, with dark hair plastered to her face and brown eyes that held shock and gratitude in equal measure. "Thank you," she gasped. "I don't know what happened. I'm a good swimmer, but the current, I panicked." "The undertow can be deceptive here," Marcus said. "Are you hurt? Do you need medical attention?" The lifeguards were checking her over, asking questions, calling for the EMTs as a precaution. A crowd had gathered, people murmuring and pointing. "I'm fine," the woman insisted. "Just shaken." "Really, I'm okay." But her hands were trembling, Marcus noticed, and her breathing was still uneven. The EMTs arrived and insisted on checking both of them. Marcus's blood pressure was elevated from exertion but otherwise fine. The woman, who gave her name as Victoria Blackwell, was pronounced healthy, but advised to rest and avoid swimming for a few days. As the crowd dispersed and the excitement died down, Victoria approached Marcus and Chloe. She'd wrapped herself in a towel someone had provided, and her color was returning to normal. "I owe you my life," she said simply. "I don't even know your name." "Marcus Webb. This is my daughter, Chloe." "Chloe," Victoria said, crouching down to the girl's level despite her own shaky legs. "You were very brave. I saw you start to come in after your dad. That took courage. I was scared, Chloe admitted, then looked up at Victoria with the blunt honesty of children. You scared me. You made my dad go in the water and I thought he might not come back. The words hung in the air, and Marcus saw something shift in Victoria's expression. Understanding, perhaps, or a deeper recognition of what his rescue had meant to his daughter. I'm so sorry I scared you, Victoria said gently. Your dad is a hero. He saved my life, but I understand why it was frightening for you. She stood and looked at Marcus. Please, let me get your contact information. I'd like to thank you properly. Once I've recovered from this embarrassment. Marcus gave her his number, expecting nothing to come of it. People always said they'd stay in touch after dramatic events, but life moved on. He was wrong. 2 days later, Victoria called. I know this is forward, she said, but I'd like to take you and Chloe to dinner. A proper thank you. There's a wonderful restaurant overlooking the water. Ironic. I know, and I'd really like to express my gratitude. They met that evening at the restaurant Victoria had suggested, and Marcus realized quickly that this was no ordinary place. The prices on the menu made his eyes widen, and the level of service suggested exclusivity he wasn't accustomed to. Victoria, he said carefully, this is very generous, but really, you don't need to... Please, she interrupted. Let me do this. You saved my life. A dinner is the least I can offer. Over the meal, Marcus learned that Victoria Blackwell was CEO of Blackwell Industries, a multinational corporation he'd vaguely heard of. She'd been vacationing alone at her beach house, apparently, a massive property on the private end of the beach, trying to decompress from a stressful quarter. I thought a swim would clear my head, she said. Instead, I nearly drowned because I overestimated my abilities and underestimated the ocean. Not my finest moment of judgment. The ocean doesn't care about your resume, Marcus observed. It's humbling that way. Victoria laughed, a real laugh that seemed to surprise her. You're right. I'm used to being in control. The ocean reminded me I'm not. Chloe, who'd been quiet during most of the meal, suddenly spoke up. My dad's a teacher. He teaches English at the high school. He's really good at it. His students like him. Marcus felt his cheeks warm. Chloe. It's true, Chloe insisted. They always say hi to you at the grocery store and tell you they miss your class. Victoria smiled at Chloe, then at Marcus. A teacher. That's wonderful. What made you choose that profession? Marcus thought about how to answer. After my wife died, I needed something with regular hours. Summers off, stability for Chloe. But also, I wanted to make a difference. Teaching lets me do that, one student at a time. Something in Victoria's expression shifted. I started my company to make a difference too, she said quietly. To create jobs, to innovate, to contribute something meaningful. But somewhere along the way, it became about growth metrics and shareholder value and market position. I forgot why I started. They talked long after the meal was finished, about life and loss and purpose. Marcus found himself opening up about Emily's death, about the challenge of raising Chloe alone, about the small joys he'd learned to treasure. Victoria shared her own story, a driven woman who'd built an empire, but sacrificed personal relationships and peace of mind in the process. I haven't taken a real vacation in 5 years, Victoria admitted. This was supposed to be 2 weeks off, and I've spent most of it on conference calls. The afternoon I went swimming was the first time I'd actually unplugged. And look what happened. Maybe that's the lesson, Marcus suggested. That unplugging saved you, not from the ocean, but from missing what matters. Victoria looked at him for a long moment. You're wise, Marcus Webb. Not wise, Marcus corrected. Just someone who learned the hard way that we don't get unlimited time. We get now. That's all. Over the next week, Victoria became a regular presence in Marcus and Chloe's vacation. She joined them for beach days, taught Chloe to identify different types of shells, and had dinner with them several times. Marcus noticed that she seemed lighter somehow, more relaxed than that first dinner. This is nice, Victoria said one evening as they watched the sunset while Chloe played in the sand nearby. Just being. Not doing, not achieving, not managing. Just existing in a moment. It takes practice, Marcus said. I wasn't good at it either at first. After Emily died, I kept myself so busy I didn't have to feel. But eventually, I realized that being present for Chloe meant being present, period. Not distracted, not busy, just Here, Victoria turned to him. Can I tell you something? That day in the water when I was drowning, my entire life didn't flash before my eyes the way people say it does. You know what I thought? What? I thought I haven't really lived. All my achievements, all my success, and I realized I'd missed the point of it all. I'd forgotten to actually live my life while I was busy building my career. And now? Marcus asked. Now I'm wondering what it would look like to change that, Victoria said. To find balance. To make room for things that matter, not just things that make money or look impressive in annual reports. The vacation ended, and Marcus and Chloe returned to their home 3 hours inland. He thought that would be the end of it. A summer friendship, meaningful but temporary. But Victoria stayed in touch. She called regularly, came to visit on weekends. She attended Chloe's school play, where Chloe had 3 lines as Tree Number 2 and Victoria applauded like she'd witnessed a Broadway performance. She invited them to her city for weekends, showing them museums and restaurants, but also asking Marcus to show her how to just be still, to find contentment in simple moments. I hired a new COO, Victoria told Marcus 6 months after the rescue. Someone I trust to handle day-to-day operations. I'm scaling back my hours, making space for life.